here. Okay. Let's double check here that everyone can hear me. Okay, perfect. All righty. It looks like we are live. Adrianne, thank you so much for taking time out of your extremely busy schedule to be here with me today. Very, very happy to share a little bit about your journey and just have you talk about just some of the goals you've been able to achieve, just talking about some of the programs. So just everything that has been included with you and just all this past year. So thank you so much for coming in.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Awesome. And of course, for everyone joining today, my name's Adam Trevino. I am the host of this group. I'm a host of the Desk Workers Facebook group as well. And again, having my client Adrianne here to talk a little bit about her success so far. And so, yeah, I really want to kind of just have you share a little bit about your fitness journey as a whole, how you kind of just came about joining this overall program, what you were doing prior to joining the program, and just talking about some of the challenges that you were perhaps facing prior to joining the program as well. I just kind of love to learn a little bit more about, and I'm sure everyone else joining the live, just kind of learning more about your story, why you decided to jump into everything, and yeah, just kind of jump into some of the challenges that you were facing throughout this time when you were going through this particular difficult time with your journey.
Okay. I think my journey is probably identical to so many other people's. It's, the goal to try to get healthy, try to be fit, dieting, you'll try whatever the newest kind of diet is out there, low carb, keto, low fat, whatever. I've been at it for years and years after, having kids and being a full-time, mom and also full-time, corporate worker and done it all. I think I've done every diet there is out there, if you will. But one thing that I never was, so I had success. I'm pretty strong-willed, so I was able to lose weight pretty easily. But then, as soon as you stop that magic, diet or whatever, you put it all back plus some. That's
Right.
just the standard roller coaster diet mentality that I was kind of in the cycle of.
Mhm.
One of the things that I did not do through all of the years of losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight is exercise much. I've never been much of a person that enjoyed exercise. I would try to do whatever I could to avoid it for the most part and just try to maintain my weight by dieting alone. So it wasn't working. Um, hitting my 50s, I was like, I really want to do this once and for all. And I started walking a lot and started having some success with that. But I had seen your program and I was very curious. And I know, a couple of your clients and saw the results they were having online. And I thought, all right, I'm gonna give this a try. So um, joined with you and really with the goal at that point in time was to add that last element of the exercise.
Yeah, 100%. And I know that previously, before jumping onto the program, you mentioned that it's like, okay, I have a really good sense about nutrition, but when it comes to the exercise, it's been relatively difficult to develop something from that. So I think everyone would like to know, like, what sort of things did you implement that's been extremely helpful for you and efficient for you to be able to start seeing, results, consistently and sustainably throughout this past year?
Well, just lifting weights. I never would have ever imagined myself as someone that, lifted weights. I was actually pretty intimidated about going to the gym and actually doing that. When I had gym memberships in the past, I was strictly like roll in, jump on a treadmill for a few minutes, look around, out, and so I never really got into any of the weight machines or the free weights or any of that because I didn't really know what to do.
Right.
Um, and so I just didn't try.
Hmm.
So one of the things obviously that you had me start was, basic, regularity as far as weightlifting, at least we started off with 3 times a week.
Hmm.
And then I figured out pretty quickly that I actually liked it, and then I went to 4 times a week. And then I sprinkled some light cardio in between that.
For
Um,
sure.
I kept walking. Some of the other things that I like to do to kind of challenge myself if I get bored, and I do. I'm one of those that I can do something, but if I felt like I was falling off, I kind of do walking challenges to where I'm like I'm gonna do 10,000 steps a day for 6 weeks,
Right.
and kind of gamified it, if you will. And so I just did that just to kind of keep me on track. But the juice was the weights. I initially didn't drop, you know, in per previous diets where you can drop weight real fast. But you're kind of like skinny fat, if you
Yeah.
will.
Hmm.
Um, what I noticed pretty quickly was that I started, developing some muscle
Hmm.
tone, and really kind of just started reshaping the weight that I had, and I
Yeah.
was really surprised at how fast that actually occurred.
Yeah.
Relatively fast.
Especially, yeah, what you're saying is once you start jumping into the weights, people seem to think that it's going to take a really long time to start seeing some change, but it actually, if of course weights haven't been part of the routine for a while, a lot of change starts to happen very, very quickly. Is that
Right.
something that you experienced?
Yeah, I mean, and by quickly, I mean it doesn't happen overnight,
Right.
but first I noted that, the basic weights that you had me start on,
Hmm.
I noticed pretty quickly that I was able to level up in weight. I thought pretty rapidly, and then it became easier with time and obviously repetition, and then I started noticing the subtle changes, and it's like anything else. First you notice it, and then your friends start noticing it.
Yep.
But my friends now will be like, "You're the half of the person that you were." And they ask me all the time, like, how much weight did you lose? Because they really expect me to say that I lost, like 50 pounds.
Right.
But I'm like, no, it's been like 15.
Hmm.
And it's just, I built muscle.
Right.
And, but, so it's been since I started with you since what, January?
Hmm.
So, yeah.
It's, and I say it over and over again, and I know many people know that I talk about this over and over again, but the scale is only the tool, like one tool to use over the course of a bunch of other tools that we need to use to manage,
Hmm.
measurements and things like that. And, you know, I think you mentioned like one of the first things you said is like I noticed that my clothes are fitting a lot looser, but the scale's only around like 5 pounds. And we're just like, even though that was sort of a point in time where you were like not super duper excited with those numbers, you were
Hmm.
still very happy with the result that you were getting when you noticed that clothes were fitting a lot
Hmm.
looser,
Oh,
as if you had lost more weight.
yeah. Right.
And this goes to show just it's important to take other measurements other than just the scale, right? Taking into account the way your clothes fit, how you're performing in the gym, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm glad you
Hmm.
brought that up because I know plenty of people just struggle, which is not seeing the scale budge very much. And everyone's different, sometimes it stays the same for some people, right? Which in that case means, all right, I'm losing body fat and gaining muscle at the same time. But I think you're a perfect example of noticing just within yourself and of course with others, like, wow, you look like you probably lost 30 to 50 pounds, but no, I've only really lost 15. And I think
Hmm.
more people need to start, understanding and it's good listening to other people, say things like that. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's incredible.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know if you recall the point that I kind of almost stopped. I mean, I still weigh,
Hmm.
but I switched to measurements because I really wasn't seeing the scale
Hmm.
moving.
Right.
but my measurements started showing the difference. And then just seeing the tone in, your arm, right? And so when people ask me now, they're like, well, what are you doing? What's your next goal as far as weight loss goes? And truthfully, I've stopped tying a number
Hmm.
to it. I mean, I have a goal, but my
Right.
goal isn't I want to weigh 150 pounds. My
Right.
goal is, I said honestly, I don't know how far I can take this. I know that my muscle tone isn't where I want it to be yet, and I'm still working on certain areas more than others. I said, so that's really my focus now is restructuring
Hmm.
the appearance of my muscles,
Right.
not so much the weight. And it's like I've just I flipped to that now instead of worrying about what that scale says because I already know it's like kind of like the scale's a liar. I mean, it's a good
Yeah.
tool, but
It
you
is a
can't
little bit of
help
a liar.
it, you know.
Out of curiosity, do you feel like starting a routine or starting a program, and just for those like jumping into weights as a beginner, do you feel like what sort of, I guess, a lot of them would like to know what sort of mindset approach do you feel like you should have that mindset approach from the beginning, or do you feel like that's been kind of helpful, kind of learning that midway through your journey of lifting weights and losing body fat at the same time, gaining muscle? Do you feel like that should have been something that you should have focused on at the very beginning when it comes to the scale, or do you feel like that's something that you should have that you're kind of okay with now, learning halfway through, this journey that you're
Um,
following?
no, you know what? I think even if someone had told me that straight out, from the beginning that you need to switch your mindset, we all
Mhm.
have our own, beliefs and ideas on regarding weight and scales and everything else. But it was beneficial for me to start very basic.
Mhm.
And immediately I did start losing weight, right?
Right.
Which is kind of the natural thing. It's like more activity, and staying in a calorie deficit, it's going to happen. It will happen. It can't not happen.
Right.
So, it was focusing on just making sure that my macros and everything were following, what you'd set up for me and learning the basics. I
Mhm.
focused on learning the basics and I didn't put any other pressure on myself for any other reason other than that. Like, this is something completely new to you. So we're going to trust the process. We're going to trust what Adam, has put together for you and just do it.
Huge.
Um, and then, just staying in touch with you, when I had questions, or when you check in with me, but it was a process, it was a learning process. And I think that moving forward, it's always going to be a learning process.
100%.
I don't know what my body's capable of, I do believe that the best version of me, I've never even realized it. So it's like let's see what we can do.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
100%. And the thing is, it hasn't even been a year yet, right? Which
no.
makes me so excited. It makes me excited and I'm glad that you're in that mindset too. Like, oh, what am I really truly capable of? And I think that's a really important thing. I even before we started the program, that was a question I asked you. It's like, okay, what what is it that you want to achieve and why, right? And that's a really big driving force for you even up to this point, because now you've achieved a good amount of results and been able to achieve many of your goals, but now you're like, okay, what's next? Why am I doing this? What am I really capable of achieving if I just continue this? And yeah, like
Mhm.
I mentioned, it hasn't even been a year yet. And that's just incredible. That's incredible to really think about it, even be in that position to think about that, because yeah, the possibilities are really endless. It's endless. I think another really good topic that is very, you know, consistent with what we're talking about right now is understanding, okay, that's great and all, but what about your struggles? What about the challenges? What about the different things that you experience? I know travel was a really big one, and there were some weeks where you didn't even have a chance to work out or exercise. I'd love for you to kind of just talk about that, how you were able to handle that, the approach to that. Kind of just talk a little bit about, handling those challenges and those struggles.
Sure. Okay, so yeah, so you're right. Travel is a big thing, and I had you yeah, I reached out to you when I did that, and you helped me by setting up, some um workouts for where I was gonna be. I think one was Vegas, which works out in Vegas. Well, I do now. But and then the cruise. We looked at the gym and what they had, and wasn't sure I was going to hit the gym all those days, but I knew I wanted to try to get some activity in there.
Hmm.
I have setbacks just like everybody else. I have some crazy chaotic, things happening in
Right.
my work life, my personal life. Truthfully, that there was times I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make this work, and but I dedicated myself to it. I tried to make some accommodations like, okay, well, maybe you need to get up a little bit earlier and go to the gym, do an early, shift at
Yeah.
the gym and get it knocked out. Super against my comfort zone because I am not a morning person. I'm the night owl.
Hmm.
But it was just find a way. And if I didn't get there, and I knew something would, fell through that I wasn't going to be there, I was like, okay, well, one thing I can control is I control when I put it in my mouth.
Hmm.
I can make sure that I'm sticking to a solid food choices so I don't just throw it all away. It's like maybe I didn't get the workout in, but I can make sure that I eat well and fuel my body well to where I'm not also having that setback.
Definitely.
um there's leeway. It's like if I don't get to the gym today, I can do a little more the next time. I find ways to walk at home, and I got some little dumbbells, here at the house, and I asked you to set me up just a little home workout in case I
Hmm.
couldn't get to the gym. So just trying to find modifications to get some sort of movement in.
Hmm.
And if I can't, it's okay. You got to give yourself grace for that and be like, all right, well, life happened, but not to, but I'm very careful not to regress back to, oh, well, let's go have the gigantic Mexican, platter meal and let's go, throw it, throw it all caution to the wind and forget it all. If I had a little bit overindulgence, I just really focused on getting back on track the next day. And what I found was that those things, especially with the additional weightlifting and everything, it's like it never even happened. I could go, and in fact, I just got back from Vegas last week. I went for another week, and I was there all week long. I planned to work out, but I went with a friend of mine that just didn't work out as per plan. But
Right.
I didn't get any gym time in. We did plenty of walking, so I was clocking some steps in. I did my best to adhere to some solid food choices, and I came back a pound different, and so I had meal prep the whole week before that trip and just really planned carefully. And then I got right back into my meal prep when I got back. And it was like, whatever, nothing that I did in Vegas, and trust me, I plenty affected me whatsoever. So, it's nice to have. That's the other benefit to me. It's like, well, before I would have come back and I would have been, 5 pounds plus difference and just come home and kept indulging,
Hmm.
and that was part of the roller coaster. But now it's like, okay, because I take care of my body the way that I take care of my body, and I move and exercise to the extent that I do, I can do these things without any negative impact.
Yeah, 100%. And what you're saying right now, just the rewiring of your approach, your brain, the discipline, I don't even want to say it isn't motivation, but the consistency that you've been able to uphold with that. I think plenty of us would like to know. It's very difficult getting to that point. What do you feel was the biggest needle mover for shifting your mindset to get to a place to think that way and be disciplined with those choices and come back from a travel or during travel, be able to make those actionable, steps forward, literally and metaphorically speaking, right? Getting your steps in. But, how did you just rewire yourself to be disciplined with that? Because even just today, I was talking to an individual who struggles with, you know, taking action during travel time. Hey, I'm going out to dinners, I'm having drinks with coworkers, I've got all these things planned and I never hit the gym. Um, and I come back home and it's a little bit easier when I'm home. But again, I'm traveling half of the year, whatever. How do you get yourself to a place to rewire your brain to actually take action, not only while you're traveling, but also when you get back?
For me, I've had such solid results. And I think I told you this as well. I went from a complete non-exerciser to someone that actually enjoys it now.
Mhm.
I don't always love it. I go and there's days that I'm, in the gym and I'm, doing my, upper body, and I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to do it, but I did it anyhow, kind of, thing. And
Yeah.
it's hard. I'm tired and it's like, but I pushed myself through it. But for me, I just became very deeply rooted in, I've gotten results that I haven't seen before because I've never done this before. I
Right.
was never an exerciser and I was never lifting weights. So I like the seeing the physical changes that I've had. It hasn't been extraordinarily difficult to do it.
Hmm.
Quite frankly, when I really sat down and thought about it, I was like, wow, I could have done this a long time ago because this just isn't that hard.
Right.
Um, and at my age, and I think I mentioned this to you when we started this, my father, I had a loss of my father this year. And one of the things that I really thought about and considered was my father's very sedentary lifestyle.
Hmm.
I think contributed largely to, just a lot of his mobility issues and everything else. And I was like, I'm not trying to go out like that.
Right.
And I don't want to be that to my kids. So I think you dig deep and you find what really your motivation is about. And I think it really kind of, I mean, maybe for some people it can be just about the way they look, but I've looked good and I've regressed and fallen back into, not looking good, so looking good, it wasn't a big enough why for me. I really had to get serious with why am I doing this, which was health, longevity, and to look good. I mean, we all want to look
Definitely.
good. But
All
for
of my
me,
products.
it was always about, I want to be the best version, the healthiest version for myself. I've got my kids are in their 20s now. I don't have any grandkids yet, but eventually I hope to, and I'd like to be, someone that's physically able to be active for a very long time, and enjoy my life because I work too hard not to,
Yeah,
you know, and that's just the bottom line. So it was do something now, before it gets too late.
definitely. Do you feel like that mindset and that approach is enough to hold you with this overall routine, this journey that you've been following? Do you feel like that is enough for you to continue on long term, or do you feel like you're going to need something extra to continue to progress? And I'm curious to know, like, what is your plan for that? I think others like to know, okay, you've been at this for a while, but it hasn't quite been a year yet that you've implemented this sort of newish routine, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Is this enough driving force for you to think about and continue forward, or are there going to be other external factors that you feel like you're going to have to, or internal factors that you have to include to continue to keep this up?
I think so. I was just thinking about that myself actually this past week because the last couple of weeks have been really kind of crazy in my
Hmm.
life. I've been finalizing an estate. I've got some deadlines and it's work all day and then, I've got to get over to my dad's property and
Mhm.
work there. So like for instance, tomorrow night, Wednesday night, and probably Thursday night this week, I'm not gonna really have gym time like I would after work. So I was like, well, shoot, I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna be hitting the goals pretty late,
Hmm.
most likely. But it's important enough for me to find a way to do it. So I mean, I worked some this weekend to try to, lessen the workload so I can make that happen and just kind
Hmm.
of fit it all in. Um, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but I've changed.
Yeah.
And I enjoy working out. If I don't get to the gym, I don't hit it with a negative guilty mindset.
Huge.
It's more frustrating for me that
Mhm.
I didn't get my time in because that's kind of my me time.
Yeah.
So I'm to the point now that if I'm not doing it, I feel a little cheated. Like,
Hmm.
not that I'm cheating, but 'cause it's a different mindset. Before I would have been like, oh, I didn't work out, so I'm bad.
Yeah.
Um, Now it's like, well, that sucks. I want to go to the gym.
Right.
So it's just changed.
Yeah. I think you answered the question really well there because it's no different than being, you know, consistent 5, 10+ years down the road. It is you have answered that question so well because it's now part of your lifestyle and you're at that point. It's so ingrained in what you've been doing in your routine that you do feel like you're cheating a little bit of yourself. You haven't placed yourself first. You haven't paid yourself first, right? Whenever you get your paycheck, you always pay yourself first, right? You put a little bit to savings. It's no different than paying yourself in time and effort in the gym and exercise because you're paying yourself first with your health and fitness.
Right.
And so ingrained into your lifestyle, I think some people are just like, what's keeping you motivated? What's keeping you consistent? How do I maintain this for the whole year? It's like once you've gotten to that point, it's so ingrained in everything that you no longer even think about that. It's no longer
Mhm.
about thinking, oh man, I gotta go work out tomorrow. It's like I get to work out tomorrow. It's just there. It's already in the calendar. And even if you're planning like what you're planning now and you've got those challenges and those hurdles to overcome, okay, I know that I need to take care of that. That obviously takes precedence right now at this particular point in time. But this isn't long term. A couple days down the road, you'll still hit your workout, you'll make up for it, and you don't let that domino effect or snowball effect into the later days or
Right.
weeks follow everything about what lifestyle truly is. It's part of your life now. And yeah, I think that's just the perfect way to answer it because you didn't really say lifestyle change, but in reality that's exactly what it is. It's so ingrained in your lifestyle, and I think that's an incredible thing.
It
So
is, and I think I told you the other day. I said, well, I said you changed me from a non-exerciser to an exerciser. So you accomplished something that no one has done. I accomplished it with your
100%
assistance
all you.
ultimately. But and I think I don't know if you recall the other day I sent you a message that I was frustrated because I what I learned over the past couple of weeks was that those gaps in my weightlifting, it's like
Mhm.
when I get back, if I haven't been consistent, I found I had to drop my weights down a little bit,
Yeah.
and that irritated me a
Yeah.
lot. I was like, "What?"
Happens
I
quick.
was like, "Why is this so hard?" And then it was, so that was another
Quick
learning moment
call.
for me that I hadn't experienced yet because I've been consistent, and then it's like these other things stepped in, and that was the first time that I had to minus the time I was sick, and I think when you're sick and you finally
Sure.
get back to the gym, you might have to make that adjustment, right?
Sure.
But this was the first time that I wasn't able to lift what I was accustomed to, and I realized it was due to that inactivity.
Mm.
And I said to myself, okay, well, we're not doing that anymore because
Yeah.
that was, I don't want to go backwards. It's not acceptable to me. So it happened, and I'm working through it,
Get right
um,
to it.
but I was surprised how fast that can happen.
Yep. And it was very similar whenever I'm traveling out, internationally for a week. I'm not going to the gym. I spend that time with family, friends, whoever I'm with. But when I get back, I feel like a completely different person. Even since I've been exercising for over a decade, when I come back from not exercising for a week only, I feel completely different. My weight has gone down. I noticeably look different in the mirror, and it's quick how fast, things can change. But on the flip side, once you start going back into it, and I know you could probably attest to this, within the week, you're right back to normal again. And it,
Yeah.
it goes back to normal very quickly as well. The thing is you just
Froze up on me.
you just get right back into it, and then a week later you're back to normal pretty much.
Yeah.
Granted you're staying, but
I was just like, we're not doing that too much.
yeah, it's you
We're
start to
gonna
learn a lot
go.
about yourself.
It could be rare, but we're not gonna make that a habit. Because
Definitely.
no one wants to start over, and that's kind of my mindset now. Is I'm
You can't.
this is a process, and I'm not starting it over. I'm
Mhm.
gonna see this through, um, and it's just not that hard. It's I at one point in my life had that mindset that this was too hard,
Mhm.
and it's like, okay, you start seeing results, it makes a big difference. Um, and that drives me a lot too. Is I
The
see the
momentum.
results,
Mhm.
and if I don't see results, I'm feeling the results. There's always something that, like per in the app, it gives you, this you had your, best reps or whatever. But if you look at it on at every level, there's always something that you had success in. Even if it was just you dragged yourself to the gym when you didn't want to, that's a gold star moment. And so give
It is.
yourself the grace and just, you got there.
Yeah,
Um, it
100%.
doesn't always have to be perfect, but it's activity in the right direction.
Right. Yeah, I always say there's no such thing as a bad workout. You're not going to regret going to the gym no matter what it is that you're doing in the gym, even if it's for 10 to 15 minutes. You come out, you're like, you know what? I'm glad I got that in. You'll never feel bad. You'll never feel bad no matter what approach you have, as long as you're able to get your butt in there and actually do something.
Right.
Um, and yeah, it's crazy how your brain starts to rewire a bit, and you start to notice the changes that happen and the momentum that builds off of that. And you'll continue to experience it long term as long as you stay consistent with what you're doing. And it's doable. You found that out. You found out that it is doable, and it can happen even despite being a non-exerciser, being a busy person who travels often, someone who sits down and works at a desk all day. You've successfully been able to implement that as part
Mhm.
of your day now. And now it's part
Yep.
of you. And
Yep.
it's a beautiful thing. It's changed so many, directions in your life. What would happen if you wouldn't have taken that step and that leap forward, right? Where would you have been today? You know, would you have been further behind? It's always crazy to think about those things. And then you really realize how far you've come, even within little less than a year. It's incredible
Mhm.
what can happen. It's incredible.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely. No, I'm excited to see what, just it takes time. You didn't get where you were overnight, and this doesn't happen overnight either.
mhm,
But the journey's been enjoyable.
definitely. I'm so glad, Adrian. Thank you so much for taking out time of your day to jump on again. We really appreciate it.
No
Your
problem.
story is incredibly inspiring, and I'm sure, tons of people are going to be, getting some nuggets away from this conversation. So I'm glad that you were able to jump on and just talk about your journey so far, and we're excited to see how far you could take that. This is only just the beginning, really. But yeah, thank you guys again so much for tuning in. If you have any questions for Adrienne, please feel free to drop them down in the comments below. She's wonderful at answering questions for anyone. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them down below. Yeah, guys, we have these live streams every Monday at 6 p.m. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. You can make sure to check out the other live streams at the top of the pinned to featured area of the Facebook group. Thank you again. Thank you again so much again, Adrienne, for her jumping on. I can't even talk. Yeah, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Anytime, Adam. Have a good
All
night.
right. Have a good
Thanks.
night. Thank you so much. Have a good
You're
one.
welcome. All right. Bye bye.
Bye.